Minasan, welcome back. We are continuing where we left off last time. We're finishing step 1, and that's gonna be it for this episode. This is literally gonna just end step 1, and we're gonna transition to step 2 next episode. But I really wanted to make this like its own thing to conclude this. So, and then summer ended. Let us continue on to the story. Are you sure? Yes, summer has ended. I'll never get tired of that view. You stood beside your moms, Lizzie and Cove, as the 5 of you watched the sun dip into the ocean somewhere far, far away. You like to imagine it cooling off in the water, resting itself before getting ready to shine brightly again tomorrow. That was a fun day. I didn't know they had magicians in the shopping street now. Neither did I. Oh no, we're so dull. Let's get out more. He didn't do real magic, Mom. How did you figure that one out?
Duh.
'Cause I know, that's not what real magic looks like. Oh, Lizzie dear, there's all kinds of magic in the world. Lizzie gave Mommy a suspicious look, but didn't dispute the claim. You looked over at Cove, who hadn't said a word since you started home. He didn't look upset though, just content. You're aware he still hadn't quite warmed up to your parents. Well, we can't sit out here all night. Time to hurry home and get cooking. Who's helping with dinner? Lizzie immediately let out a groan. Mom, summer's almost over! The protest was obvious. You could practically see school on the horizon. You certainly didn't want to spend your last bits of freedom cooking dinner. You could do that any other day. Mom raised a brow, the corner of her mouth lifting before she pursed her lips. You make it sound like it's the end of the world. It practically is! You nodded vigorously, thankful that you had your sister on your side. Surely your joint effort would wear your mom down.
Please.
Soon we'll have homework and reading to do? We can't do work now, too. Lizzie made her case and then stomped her foot into the ground. You mimicked her, feeling it would add something to the argument. Well?
No.
Oh, come on, Pam. I can help you with dinner. Mommy leaned in for a hug, and you knew that you were very close to victory.
Okay.
All right. But as soon as dinner's ready, you lot are coming inside, understand? Yes, Mom! Yes, Mom! Cove, dear, you're welcome to join us as well. You grinned at Cove and nudged his arm with your elbow. Cove gave a non-committal shrug at your mommy, which you took as an agreement. Has so much to do, so little time. Maybe I could still get a seashell. Blah, 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 blah. Word problems. I cannot get these words to come out of my mouth correctly. And I should. Okay, so much to do, so little time. Maybe I could still get the seashell bracelet from Tines and Trinkets. Oh, or maybe the playground, where the fireflies could be probably coming out, right? Don't I get a say in this? Lizzie looked at you, narrowing her eyes like she was very seriously contemplating the answer to that question. A strong gust of wind made you shiver. Lizzie huffed as she wrapped her arms around herself.
Rude.
Doesn't the wind know that summer's not over yet? That's all Lizzie said before abruptly turning on her heel and heading off to the direction your mothers had gone. Where are you going? I'm going to my room. I have a lot to plan if I want to make the most of tomorrow. You thought it over. Looking off towards the water again, Lizzie didn't wait, and before long she was disappearing off down the road. Are you going home too, Blue? Cove was leaning towards the beach, and you could tell he wanted to stay out a bit longer. I'm staying with Cove. Why would I not stay with Cove? Cove gave you a smile that you couldn't help but return.
Cool.
He made a little gesture that you interpreted as follow me, and then started heading to the waves. Cove knelt down, picking up something you quickly identified as a smooth rock. He reared his arm back and then tossed it out into the water. Nothing really. You tilted your head, wondering over the sudden pensive look on his face. Just thinking. About what? Cove was looking down at his cast, scratching idly at the pink surface even though you were pretty sure he couldn't feel it. His brows were furrowed and there was a frown on his face. It's not fair. I had to wear this cast for ages. I can't even swim. When do you get it off? Cove shrugged and didn't say anything. For a second you thought maybe he didn't know, but he sighed. A few weeks? It's not very long at all. It'll be off before you know it. You offered a smile, but Cove wasn't looking at you. Cove let out a huff, plopping down into the sand. I can't believe summer's almost over. You sat down next to him and nodded in agreement regardless of the sudden change in topic. I don't want to go to school. I mean, I would, but I don't want to go to a new school. I'll think about the same school. I think I'll be at the same school as you and Lizzie. My dad said something about that. That's great. We can sit together during lunch. You had only ever been to one school, but you were sure that his old school couldn't have been that much better. Then again, he did have to make new friends and meet new teachers. It could be kind of scary. Cove shook his head and then wrapped his good arm around his knees and drew them to his chest. Cove, I'll be there for you, my boy. You heard a sniffling sound, and when you took a good look at his face, you realized his eyes were wet.
I want to go home.
Oh, Cove! Da. The sudden sadness caught you off guard. You were so excited that Cove would be going to your school, it made you feel bad that he was so upset about it. Well, I can walk back with you. Cove shook his head at the offer. No, I want to go back home. Right, Cove wanted to go back to his old home. The one that sat waiting somewhere far from here. The one he would bring up whenever he felt this sad. It had been a while since he had moved in, but he didn't seem to feel any better about being here. You settled back down into the sand, trying to consider what to do. Do you hate it here, or this can be your home? That hurts. I'm gonna ask. Cove's brow furrowed even more. Then he shook his head. You felt a rush of relief fill you. You liked having Cove here. It would be sad if he had been miserable the whole time. You're not gonna leave, right? You'll still be around. The question was a little surprising. Of course. Your parents would have mentioned if you were going to move or something, right? After a second, Cove gave a little nod. Once I get my cast off, we could go swimming. You were fine with him changing the subject again. Yeah, that would be fun. Cove smiled, then looked back to the waves. My dad keeps saying I'll get used to everything eventually, that I'll feel better then. It used to make me angry. I didn't want to get used to everything. You spared a glance over at Cove and see the anger had slipped off his face in favor of something almost puzzled. But maybe it would be okay after all. As long as I really do feel better. I can't see it. You could remember a long time ago when you first started going to school. You had absolutely not been okay with the idea of being away from your parents for most of the day, to listen to strangers tell you what to do, and sit with kids you never met before. Things changing is hard. You held his hand. You're not quite sure what to say to that, so instead you reached out and took a hold of Cove's hand. The one closest to you is the one in his cast, so you make sure you're very gentle. As you watched, Cove's eyes got a little misty once again. You got the feeling that they were different tears from the ones before, though. I hope next summer I'll surf and go exploring and everything will feel like it's supposed to again. You will. It will. The two of you sat quietly, just taking in the sounds of the waves. You hoped that Cove would be able to accept this place as his new home. You definitely tried to help. In what ways you could. There were many wonderful things here Cove hadn't even seen yet. Lost in thought, you startled a bit when you heard a faint, familiar sound. The sound of your mom shouting your name. You looked over your shoulders, realizing it was probably time for dinner. You were reluctant to move, having enjoyed sitting together, but you were hungry. You stood and dusted the sand off yourself. My mom's calling, it's time for dinner, you should come. Cove looked up at you, expression screaming reluctance, yet ultimately, okay. When you smiled, Cove returned it with one of his own. Blue, thanks.
Thanks.
It was nice. Where you were right then. But the two of you couldn't stay there in your own little world any longer. You were being called forward. So both of you ran off towards your house, leaving waves in the summer behind. In between. Oh, this is where I get to change her. Okay, never mind. So, that. It's only been 10 minutes. Okay, we'll do the in-between. I think the only thing I'm going to change is the back hair. Because obviously I'm keeping her bangs like that. Braids, wavy. Ooh. Yeah, let's have her hair be wavy in the back. Let's go earrings. Obviously you can't see the earrings, but hey, I'm going to let her have earrings. Rosy cheeks. No rosy cheeks. I don't like how the rosy cheeks look. And I don't think I want her to wear braces, but I want her to like necklaces. Alrighty. And I think that's it for my character. Where obviously the only thing I'm changing is the hair, her back hair. It's gonna be a wavy now instead of just long. It says wavy 1. Is there like a wavy 2? Oh, there's wave. Oh, let's do that. That'd be cool. Just have that be her teenage hairstyle. There we go. I think that'd be cute. Okay, I'm happy. We're going to, we can't move the interest up until next time because I put it at a crush, but it's gonna be direct now. We're a teenager, we know that we like him. And this is where you can customize your cove, but obviously we're not going to actually customize the cove. We're letting the experiences shape him. And we'll deal with the consequences of if he's shaped in a way I don't like or not. Obviously, I don't think he will be because I don't think the game would do that to me. But hey, it might. August ended, September began. It was time to go back to school. Lizzie groaned and complained the entire first week. She hated going to classes. Still, there were interesting things to do that couldn't be done anywhere else. You weren't sure how Cove felt about it. He was enrolled that year. That was like a sign that Cove would be staying in Sunset Bird for a while. At school, he was alright, but kept his distance from the other kids. From what you saw, anyway. Whenever he could, Cove stuck to you like glue. He didn't mind that much at what you did to pass the time, as long as it was together. And that was just fine. You felt for him the same way you had always had. Nothing had changed. Except, as you got older, you were able to understand better what those feelings had and still meant. That year, the divorce of Cove's parents was finalized. You overheard your parents talking about it, saying Cove's dad got full custody. At first, you were worried that meant bad news. It had made Mr. Holden cry, apparently. Then you found out it meant Cove would be living with his dad, and he would only stay with his mom a few weeks of the year. Cove cried too, for different reasons, you thought. It seemed like Cove and his dad might move again, but Mr. Holden decided to stay after all. Mom asked him about it once. He said he didn't want to uproot Cove's life a second time. Mr. Holden tried to get Cove to like Sunset Bird more. He kept encouraging his son to go out and see the place. Sometimes Mr. Holden volunteered you to spend time with Cove. He seemed very confident that it was an effective strategy. Cove never talked to anyone about what happened with his parents and withdrew whenever it was brought up. It was hard for him, and yet nobody knew how to help. Eventually, Cove stopped crying on his own. You couldn't understand what had changed, but you had hoped you could help him feel better still, since even without the tears, he looked sad. Maybe one day he could say out loud what he felt inside. After that, it felt like things had gone back to normal, except what was normal didn't stay the same. Years passed, and suddenly you were in middle school. You weren't a kid anymore, you were 13 years old. That officially made you a teen, even if your sister didn't agree. The toys and crowns that used to litter every free space in your room had been packed away somewhere, replaced by new hobbies. There were other changes, too. Cove's cast got taken off. It was weird to see him without it initially. Underneath the pink plaster ended up being a long, thin scar that snaked across his forearm. Cove's cheeks flushed with a shy pride when someone drew attention to it. He also went through a major growth spurt. He was the tallest student in his class for 2 years in a row. Cove will probably hold that spot again next time. In class, people knew for him more than just being tall. He also stood out because of how well he did in gym and other athletic situations. Over the years, he became more quiet and reserved. You didn't usually see him talking to other people. And the only kid that came to visit the neighborhood when you were little, Shiloh, well, he was gone. He and his mom moved back south because of her work just 1 year after Cove came to Sunset Bird. It had been really upsetting when he left. Lizzie was inconsolable for weeks, but nobody talked about Shiloh anymore. It was a long time ago. You learned some heartbreaking things became less sad the further away they are, even if they had never gotten any better. It was sad in its own way. Things at home were different too. You still lived in the same house and all that, but it wasn't how it was before. Ma dyed her hair purple, wanting something new, and liked it so much she kept dyeing it. You remembered calling her mommy as a kid, but something like that seemed awkward nowadays. You were much too old for that word. Lizzie felt too mature for her nickname too. She insisted on everyone calling her Elizabeth, so you did. Your mom soon gave her permission to go places other than the playground and shopping street, which she took advantage of. You rarely saw her around the old neighborhood. In fact, she hardly spent time with you the way she did before. Elizabeth instead associated more and more with girls from school who were her own age. Wow, my sister really changed. Maybe the difference between 13 and 15 was greater than the difference between 8 and 10. You started befriending new people yourself, like Derek Swartz. He didn't live in the neighborhood or go to the same school. What happened was his and Cove's dad struck up a business partnership a few months ago. Since then, Derek would pop up in the area now and then. It seemed Mr. Swartz was happy to let Derek tag along to his work if Derek had the time for it. Without a doubt, everyone and everything around you had changed in small and big ways. You had too. As time went by, though, it was easy to settle into this new normal. Then, before you knew it, school was over and summer vacation had come again. It was the first day of summer vacation. The sun was as hot as ever, but you were inside and away from its harsh rays. To be more specific, you were about to enjoy my time off. You made sure to slather on a generous amount of sunscreen so you didn't get burnt. You were looking in the mirror, studying the clothes you'd thrown on when your bedroom door opened without warning. In the reflection, you saw Elizabeth raise an eyebrow. Have you been staring at yourself this whole morning? Could you knock next time? She ignored that, crossing her arms over her chest with a disgruntled expression. Clearly, she hadn't come in just to see you. Mom told me to tell you that your baby boyfriend is here and he wants to see you again, like he does every day. He brought some happy summer gift from Mr. Holden. Mom wants you to take it from him. Say thanks or whatever. You did not like the way she called him your baby boyfriend, but you knew by now that saying so wouldn't stop her.
Come on.
Calm down already. Be right there. Elizabeth said nothing else and left, having done what she was instructed of her. Now alone, you focused on the mirror once again. Cove was really tall, Derek was kinda short, and you were pretty much the exact type that someone would expect of a 13-year-old. I like my height. It suited you well in your mind. I'm 13. Why would I be self-conscious of my height? Then you put in the finishing touches on your outfit while rummaging in this. Well, not what I meant to do. While lamenting on the situation, careless as they had been, Elizabeth's words piqued your curiosity. You planned on going over to see what Cove was up to today, so this worked in your favor. It was when you spied your reflection that you realized you were smiling wide. You were looking forward to seeing him. You left your room, going down the stairs 2 steps at a time. And that is where we're going to end the episode. We got to step 2. Alright? Now what I meant to do? We got to step 2, everybody. So, 20-minute episode to get through step 1 and to enter step 2. Thank you all so much for joining me as we continue forward with our life beginning and always. I'm super glad that we got through Child Cove's experiences and moments, and I can't wait to see what kind of Cove we actually create. Apparently he's shy, he's reserved and quiet, but he's also really athletic, so I want to see what kind of Cove we got really on our hands. Anyway guys, thank you all so much for joining me. I'll catch you on the flip side, and we will continue on further into step 2 next time. Bye everyone.